then everybody, so in this week's video I'm wanting to show you this, my camera cage for the Panasonic S1. Now this isn't going to be a product video about this particular brand of cage. I am using a UURig cage, however I've also got other parts on this by SmallRig, and this is going to be more of a video about why I use a cage on my camera. So as you can see on this particular cage, I've got a side handle and a top handle. Both the side handle and the top handle are actually by SmallRig. They do work with this camera cage that's by UURig because the threads are all universal or standard to this kind of thing. Now, I find that having a side handle really helps out with the Panasonic S1 in particular because this is a pretty heavy camera. Now, the weight of this camera on its own isn't unbearable. However, if you're filmmaking and you're doing any handheld kind of stuff, it can make you shake and wear you out quite quickly. And I find just having a side handle really helps distribute that weight a little bit better. So it means that when you're sort of locking your elbows in and trying to get those still shots, for me, having a little bit more width to the camera that I'm using gives me a little bit more stability, and it might do for you also. The other thing, having a top handle really helps you get those low angle shots, again without having to position your hands in a funny way to keep the camera steady. My camera never leaves this cage. I can take things off the cage, such as the top handle, which I have to do regularly to fit this in my camera bag, but everything else I leave on it, and that includes the tripod base plate and things like that. Now, this might not be important for you, but I like to think if I'm adding accessories like the camera base plate to a rig, if you're constantly taking a base plate off and on your camera, you know, you're always going to risk threading your screws. Something which I've never done, but I have had accessories in the past that have threaded, and it's really annoying when it does happen. So I have a little bit of peace of mind knowing that the cage never leaves the camera, which means that any cross threading that does happen is going to damage the cage and not the camera, because that could be quite an expensive repair bill. So once you start rigging up your camera with all of these extra areas of the cage, you're going to struggle to find a bag which you can actually keep this thing in, or a pelly case. And so a lot of the times, if I wasn't to need a bag that was absolutely humongous, I do have to remove one or more of the accessories on the camera cage just so that it fits in my bag. As you can see, there are plenty of ports and threads that you can actually adapt things to on this cage, which means that you can add lots of extra things which on a camera itself you'd be limited to by your hot shoe at the top, and potentially things which can be attached to a tripod and the camera which can extend outwards. With this, I've got multiple threads which allow me to add accessories, hot shoe adapters and all that kind of stuff, which can become really helpful if you're wanting to rig out your camera to have, say, a larger external battery, monitor, microphones, lights and that kind of jazz. So for me, reason number three is having more portability. Ports. The ability to add ports, not portability, because that's more about movement. You may be able to see here that there are some areas of the camera left exposed which the cage doesn't cover. However, many of the bump points on the camera, so around the corners and the bottom edges, are protected by the cage itself. So that just gives me a bit of peace of mind that if somebody does knock into the camera, they're more than likely going to be knocking the cage itself rather than the camera, hopefully avoiding any damage. That being said, if I drop to the camera, it's either going to land straight on its lens that you can see is pretty heavy here, but if I was to drop it backwards, it's more than likely going to hit the top handle here and a little bit of impact on the bottom here. Now if I was to adjust this large camera plate, which at the moment is used for being able to just lie this camera flat without falling top heavy on the lens itself, if I was to position this further back or have a larger base plate, obviously then it's protected a little bit more at the back also. So having that extra protection for me also makes it worthwhile. So that's going to be it for today's video, folks. Hopefully, if you're thinking about buying a cage for your camera, this has been insightful. And if you are interested in the UURig and you want me to do a bit more of a thorough review of that, please drop me a comment in the comment section below, and that's something I could explore in future videos. But yeah, as always, guys, thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video.